Yeah, hi everyone, it's Billy here. Welcome to my very first podcast. A little bit nervous but excited. Going to be talking today with Martin and Annette from Arcanum Vita. Martin and his wife Kim run a wonderful company there. Martin brings a wealth of information. He's an osteopath, a naturopath, and astrology. So it's mainly the astrology today we'll be talking about, and a bit of what that's going to mean for everybody and globally and individually, and some of the shifts that are happening. So I found it very exciting, very informative and interesting to chat. It always is with Martin, off air and on. So welcome. Thank you very much for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the video. Thank you. Thanks, Martin. Annette, that's your surname, isn't it? Yep. Right. Thanks, Marty, for joining me today on 47 Wolves All I Am podcast. It's our very first one, and definitely welcome Marty and his wife Kim. Very supportive of what we're doing here. We essentially just want to help people recognise who they are, self-discovery, without having a zeroed-in niche. We just want to make it easier for people to be comfortable with who they are and discover the best of themselves. And today we're going to talk about a whole range of subjects. Marty, from our previous conversations, you've got pretty extensive background in a variety of different areas. So did you want to speak briefly about that and your background?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, Billy, thanks for having me here. I'm very excited about today, very excited to be here. Congratulations for kicking it off and doing what you're doing. I think it's incredible. I think it's a very important thing in this day and age, or this time that we're in, to really rediscover and focus on what it is to be here and who we are and what it's about. It's a topic that's very close to my heart as well. And just excited to be here. Interestingly, right as we speak, the new moon is happening right now. So it's in Aquarius, which is about the future of humanity, the sense of self, the individual. Today it's literally happening right now. Like if we look at our clock in the sky right now, the new moon is taking place. So it's a very exciting, auspicious moment to be launching such a thing. And at 20 degrees as well, that's about transformation, empowerment, self, those types of things. So it's great to be here, Billy. And I guess to speak a bit about where I come from. I'm an astrologer, but also a practicing naturopath and herbalist, and got a background in osteopathy. And we're a small family business too. We operate a practice where we just essentially focus on living a healthy, wholesome life, and finding yourself. And I guess with the astrology component of what we do, our theory is Temet Noske, to know thyself, or to understand your nature and who you really are. And I guess, by knowing our nature and where we stand and understanding how that works within nature, we get to see how nature itself is naturing our nature, and on we go. So really, that's sort of what we do. But we use a range of I guess, natural modalities, and particularly too with the astrology side of things, it's more or less understanding who we are and where we are going and the processes that work in our life. So that's. It's a bit about what we do, which we'll probably talk more about as we get along. But
absolutely. It's very. It seems like a very. No, you're very welcome. And thanks for coming along. It seems like Arcanum Vita is your company. It's very holistic viewpoints. You've sort of got a whole wide range of products that I've seen that are very helpful, and then tied in with everything else that you just spoke about.
Totally. Arcanum Vita literally means, it's kind of a Latin name. I suppose it sounds more cool when you say something in Latin, I guess. But no, Arcanum Vita translates to the secrets or the mysteries of life, and the secret hidden motivations behind life. And I guess that's always inspired me in that sense, where I guess if we understand the true essence of our life and the true purpose of our life, it's from there that our vitality flows. And I guess this is where knowing ourselves and knowing what we're about, and standing in that and being honest with ourselves in that, and ultimately enjoying that for what it is really, really the key to good health when you look at it, because it's functionally integrating all of our levels of being and all of our levels of function, and releasing our vitality, I guess. So I think hence the name Arcanum Vita. That's essentially where we come from and what we're about. And we use different modalities to support that in individuals, but really that's the basic, driving force that we recognize. And I mean, I love what you're doing, Billy, because essentially your show, from my understanding, is literally that, like looking at discovering, helping people embrace and discover and own and realize and recognize their passion and identify with their individual unique self and try and release that and let that flow. And with that, I think, with that vitality or that vital force comes health, comes integration, comes well-being. And I think that's the key.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and there's so many components to it. You've got your physical health that you've talked about, your mental health, which is so pivotal these days and very prevalent to everything that's going on in the last few years in society. And then you've got your spiritual health and emotional health as well. So it all ties in. And if your body's you're looking after it and all the right, what's going in is all the good things, and you're looking after yourself and resting and exercising, all those things that people talk about, that sort of expands out as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely. That's the key. Like, I mean, you can, I mean, for a start, for assimilation, when you look at assimilation or, just being able to cope with or bring, experience life, like, I mean, you could actually say one of the key pillars of good health is digestion. So, like, if we, on all levels, this is, so, I mean, on one hand, we could be, putting the best food in the world in our body, but if we're not assimilating it, if we're overwhelmed, or if we're in a state of I guess, resistance or intolerance, so to speak, then we're just not able to access what it is that's in our life and what's coming in. And to be able to digest something is to be able to present it in a way to ourselves, or orientate ourselves to it in such a way where we can break it down into small bits, take the good from the bad, get rid of the bad, keep the good, let that nourish ourselves, let that drive us, and let that impel us, to move forward. So, this world, I believe today, like, without getting too hardcore, but like, if you look at this world, like, it's so busy, it's so noisy, it's so intense, it's so driven that really, if you were in any state other than trying to survive or trying to just literally adapt around circumstances, you'd be in a very unique position, I believe. So really, that survival or that reactivity or that sort of orientation that the world kind of demands of us or places us into, really just kind of keeps us in this sort of survival or fight and flight mode, which is the antithesis, if you like, or the opposite of actually a good digestion. Because if you're surviving, or if you're responding, or if you're just literally trying to navigate yourself to circumstance, there's no capacity there to actually take things in. There's no capacity to nourish ourselves. There's no capacity to discern, there's no capacity for those sorts of things. So, like, that in itself, even just from a fundamental biological orientation, like, to be in overwhelm or to be in adaptation, it just literally sets us up to be unable to assimilate, unable to nourish ourselves.
And that makes complete sense, yeah. And that affects your flow, your energetic flow, your digestive flow, your metabolism, everything else. Because things do happen in life, and not on the surface it might be something that's bad, if we want to label it that way. But if we embrace that and look at it as an opportunity to, and we digest it properly, then if we don't do that, then we're suppressing that, and that energy, and that's where the blockages come in, physically and metaphysically, doesn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's the thing, like, life is full of challenges. Like, I think it'd be idealistic to say that it should all be perfect and it should all be beautiful. I mean, I think what they call a bit tox pos to probably say that, but like, really, that in an ideal world, we should be primarily in parasympathetic, primarily in rest and digest, and then life is basically an adaptive challenge. So, all growth comes from adaptation or response to challenge. Like, all kind of, learning or improvement is basically a response to challenge, or arises from our response to challenge. So, like, it's, life is challenge, but the underlying, I guess, peril to that is that we should only really spend 5% of our life, ideally, in response to challenge, and the other 95 should be in the digestion, assimilation, and growth phase to that. Like, I mean, that's just to be arbitrary, but like, we're probably the other way around now. We're probably 95% consumed with challenge, and we spend about 5% of our life trying to between the hours of 7 and 9 at night, and squeeze a bit in on the weekend, trying to somehow digest it all and break it down and bring it into some sort of cohesive sense. And if you think of parasympathetic nervous system, with the way that's wired up, all of our memory, all of our creativity, all of our sensations, our sensuality, our feelings, just our capacity to construct vision and construct, to conceptualize journey, and all those types of things are the product of this parasympathetic flow, this rhythmic flow. Whereas sympathetic is point A to point B, and this is how we're going to do it. And there's no real capacity there. So, fatigue, burnout, stress, even lack of concentration, all those types of things are not necessarily dysfunctions, but they're being removed, or seeing ourselves removed from the very faculty which provides us those functions. And that's the ability to be in flow, or to be kind of living, so to speak, in harmony. And that's something we're in peril of becoming too disconnected from, and I'm a realist. Like, life is stressful, like, don't get me wrong, but also too, we must foster within ourselves the capacity to kind of allow for a space, or create an idea around where we can come back to nourish ourselves, and come back to recollect or reconnect, or whatever it is. And I guess that's the that's my passion, I guess. That's where I come from. I'm passionate about nourishment. I'm passionate about being calm and being fulfilled, and being living a whole integrated sensual life. I'm passionate about being here. We're not, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but we're here for a short time, not a long time. And why not learn as much and gain as much and grow as much as we can in that time, so that we can evolve into some form of position of wisdom, and then ultimately give that back to life in some way that is meaningful. And I don't know, just in our lifetime, I don't know if you agree, Billy, but just in our lifetime, I've seen such a movement away from this kind of orientation or importance around nourishment or fulfillment or meaning or purpose, to the point where it's literally attainment versus fulfillment. It's kind of reached this polarization, which is potentially dangerous. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And not just individually. You can see that globally, all around the world. The material wants, and you only got to sit and watch telly or any forum with all the advertisements. You need this to be fulfilled, you need that, you need the big house, the 2 cars, the everything else, and then we lose track of ourselves in all that. Like, when we were kids, we got up and all we worried about was eating, drinking and playing, and life was pretty simple. And not that you can always do that. As you said, life has challenges with we need to earn a living, everything else, but I agree with you completely that we've and I can only speak for myself, and a lot of people around you do see people that are, even if they're wealthy, monetary wise, they're not necessarily happy, because they've lost their path of what makes where their enjoyment lies. So they're doing what they have to do, but at the same time they've lost that nourishment, and not just nourishment in food, but nourishing in doing what makes their heart sing, and what makes them happy in what they do. And even if that's for half an hour a day, they get too busy, like you said before, and that sort of just seems to amplify day after day, week after week, and over the years. And I agree with you. I've definitely seen that. As I said, when you're kids, you go to the playground, you play your sport or whatever tickles you, and you go out and you just enjoy it. You have fun. You don't think about the next day. As long as you're home when the street lights are on, as we used to say, all good. You come home, you have dinner, you're that exhausted. You just crash and start again the next day, and all that. And
it's this sort of repeating this rhythmic enthusiastic flow of life. I mean, that's in a way, like, I guess what I'm talking about too, like, and this has probably been relevant astrologically, like from an astrological point of view for the last sort of 17 odd years. Like, if we look at our underlying sort of socio-cultural or global evolutionary state. Like, Pluto, I suppose, as a symbol or as an archetype, the planet Pluto, which has a 248-year, I guess, orbit around the sun. It underpins this very long sort of cycle of evolution, like being 248 years. So, put it this way, like, in 2007, Pluto, spends about 17 years in a sign. Pluto went into Capricorn in about 2007. So if you look at the keywords around that, Pluto is transformation or breakdown leading to betterment, or, it's this sort of regenerative energy. It's the scorpionic energy, if you like, that sort of transforms things. So, like, Capricorn is associated with, structure, mind, society, material attainment. It's the 10th house in astrology, which is career, authority. I guess things like government come under Capricorn. How the public sees us in our life, what we attain or what we aspire to become, or how we aspire to be seen. Basically our material accomplishments come under Capricorn, and sort of Pluto has come into this world, and the very structures of the world, like Capricorn is structure. So, like, I guess organisation structures, all those types of things, like, they come under this energy. So Pluto's been moving through this, this field of our global structure, our material mindset, our whole sort of, who we are, what we want to become, what does it mean to have governance versus autonomy, like this whole theme sort of emerges. But so the date Pluto went into Capricorn was literally when the subprime financial crisis and what we call the GFC kicked off. So here you had the great transformer coming in and just completely breaking down, the structures of finance, the structures of materialism, essentially. So that was the initiation point. But then for the last 17 years, since about 2007, we've had the god of both power and malevolence and transformation sitting up there in the top of the chart, sort of, I guess, empowering on one level, empowering structure, or empowering the idea of what it is to be in government or in charge, or authoritative, empowering I guess this material attainment mentality, and the aspiration by virtue of Pluto sitting in that sort of representation. The aspiration, there's no accident. The aspiration has been towards centralisation of governance, and centralisation of corporate power, and centralisation of things, because Capricorn's centralising. Now, the opposite of that, in its shadow, or in ideally wherever Pluto is what we're meant to aspire to, because the innate response to Pluto sitting in Capricorn is to centralise power or place too much emphasis on worldly attainment or those types of things, to the point of recognisable toxicity or recognisable overreach or those types of things. The shadow or the polarity of that is Cancer, the Cancerian energy. And Cancerian energy is home, nourishment, rest and digest. It's the feminine. It's that flow of life. If you looked at a waveform, it's Saturn or Capricornian energy is digital. Like it's this sort of square waveform, whereas Cancerian energy is this lovely sort of rhythmic sine wave. And so by virtue, we've had this real focus or this real polarity over the last 17 years around attainment versus home or folk or our roots, or what it is that nourishes us. And if you look at a tree as an example, if the roots are no good, the fruits are no good. You've got to have good roots to have good fruits. But the emphasis has been on the fruits, and
right.
There's no real sustaining matter around the roots. And so that's I guess through the negative experience of Capricorn, we on some level have been encouraged or it's been revealed to us the importance of the level of the roots. And that, I suppose, on another word, you could call roots home, you can call roots family, you can call the roots culture, you could call it tradition. This real sort of underpinning structural sort of realization around what supports us, contains us, and nourishes us. And on another level too, that's also what we refer to as soul. Like it's that sort of that I suppose in astrology, when we look at a birth chart, I see it as an electromagnetic sort of bubble, in a way that the spirit is contained with at the moment of inception. that it kind of lives its life out through. So like, to me, you could say that's soul or whatever you want to call it, but it's essentially our capsule, our home, what stabilizes us here on this plane for our experience of life. So I guess for the last, cut a long story short, for the last 17 years, there's been this enormous emphasis around, structure and attainment and the worldly, to the point where it's actually become quite evident that, if you look at even just the last few years, there's been this sort of even awareness collectively that the structural or the governance or the bureaucracy has even invaded, if you like, the area of home or personality or the body or our sense of security, where rules, excessive rules or regulations are starting now to kind of dictate where we find ourselves or where we can come back to coalesce. In other words, our integrity as an individual has really felt the imbalance or the oppression, if you like, of that top heavy Plutonian drive. But the purpose of that is to regenerate, break down, and bring about new awareness and bring about new collective understanding around this dynamic. And so, for its betters and its worses, here we find ourselves today, literally Pluto's now moving out of Capricorn finally, thank goodness, and into Aquarius. And Aquarius, just on its face value, Aquarius is about self. It's about individual. It's about humanity. It's about our uniqueness. It's no longer about centralized power. It's about collective understanding, and not collectivization. It's actually about individualization, where if you look at Capricorn, that's more of a collectivization where we all must be the same thing. We all must aspire to this collective mentality. Aquarius is the opposite. It's an individualization where through the individual humanistic sort of understanding, we can actually find our true heart fire, our true sense of self-expression, and then realize that so that we can be of service to the collective. And it's just flipping it on its head, basically. But you need that process of orientation around the balance between, the roots and the fruits, in order to find this point of stability, in order to actually stand strong as yourself in the collective. And I don't know.
No, that's great. And that's a great analogy. If you're not looking after the roots and the whole system from bottom up, and you're just picking the fruits willy nilly, it's not sustainable. It's not long term, and that's a good parable to life, really. If we look at the short term goals and short term gains without looking at the sustainability of what, like you said, from the seed to the roots and all the way up, if we're not looking after that in all facets of our life. It's interesting to say that the Pluto's moving into Aquarius or in the middle now, and that's a long-term thing. So there's going to be some major shifts. Did you want to elaborate on where do you think that's going?
Yeah, well, so if we go back in time, like we look at the cycle itself, like the last time Pluto was sort of here, in this particular position, like at the late point of Capricorn into the early stage of Aquarius, sort of going back over the last few years, even, like it's been in late Capricorn, probably for about, 5 or 6 years or 4 or 5 years. And where we see the I guess what we looked at in the last point, a few years with COVID and all this sort of social animosity and things like that, where Pluto was then, last time we had the American War of Independence. We had this sort of fight, I guess, globally. People were uprising against tyranny, and they were sort of pushing back against, basically structural or monarchic overreach, and it led to this unification or the spirit of independence, which actually is the key word of Aquarius. It was just interesting. So when Pluto, and the war, interestingly, back then was against the crown, but in Latin, I suppose that's Corona. So I don't know, there's this weird parallel sort of happen, in these cycles. But where we find ourselves now was essentially when we were, looking last time at the Declaration of Independence. So, that was this, I suppose, very Aquarian document emerging from a struggle against, home versus tyranny or home versus authority, that led to a realization around humanity and independence and freedom, and very much, that looks like where we are essentially now. Because if you look at America, even in the world, the Pluto is right on their right on their Pluto. So they're in their Pluto return. So here they are. If you look at their particular system now, it's not hard to discern that they're kind of in very similar play out to where they were before. One of the interesting things about Aquarian energy is it polarizes. It sort of puts one against the other. So yeah, essentially we're back in a time now where we're moving from this centralized top-down energy into a very centralized bottom-up energy. It's grassroots evolving, but through polarization, like through a real polarity field. So yeah, we're into interesting times where structures that, because it's the last stage of Capricorn too, structures that have no real power, or structures that have no real sustainable energy behind them will crumble. Literally, Pluto will raise them, energetically will raise them and provide us with new foundations from which to build our new Aquarian models or our new Aquarian sort of expressions, if you like. But yeah, we're heading this year in particular. Pluto's just gone into Aquarius, like in, I think it was around January this year. It just moved into Aquarius. Last year in March, it touched into Aquarius and stayed there sort of until around, I think it was around June. It kind of stayed in there, and then it went back into Capricorn again, and we've got this ensuing sort of last ditch. Yep.
So is that why we're getting that polarity? Because Capricorn's sort of hanging on, and still, like, there's no fine line where this is the date and that's done, and the new beginning. You've sort of got that overlap. Is that?
Yeah. With any sort of any transit, there's always as it moves into the new energy. There's sometimes there's a retrograde where it kind of goes in a little bit, gives it a nudge, and then it comes back into the old energy, and then that nudge goes with it, and it stirs up the old energy, and then it comes back and gives it another nudge. And so we're getting that with Pluto into Aquarius. We're getting these little tastes of Aquarian realization, and then back into the depths of Capricorn, back into the sort of old model, and with that new awareness, that's what ultimately precipitates the final, I guess, transformations that are required to bring in the new awareness. So, it's just, the taste of the other side of the fence that makes you realize that side of the fence has got to be worked on. And so, we're in that now. And so March last year to June, we had a little bit of a taste of it. Went back into Capricorn. We're going to get a taste of it again from January till about September. And then in September, it's going to dive back into Capricorn again for a last little ditch effort. We'll have the American election and all that. And
November,
Yeah, November, and in November, that's when it finally goes into Aquarius. So it's interesting, like, it's one to watch, because, last time it went into Aquarius, they all sat down and wrote the Declaration of Independence. So, in a way, you can feel the building of this sort of November coming up as this sort of pinnacle of, where what the statement of what the lesson has been from the recognition of, the Cancer Capricorn axis, if you like. So yeah, it's interesting time. So but this year's the year, and this year's where we're going to see a lot of transformation, for want of a better word. A lot of, and I think breaking down of old structures, but it's also too, Pluto brings things to light. Pluto brings things up into the open. So what's hidden down there, or what's hidden, secret power structures, or secret old traditional models, or hidden structures that underpin our day-to-day life that we're not aware of. And this is even in our personal life, like, habits or patterns or ways of looking at things, or, traditional understandings, like, oh, this is the way things have got to be. All that stuff's going to come to light. All that stuff's going to be brought up into the open to be reworked. Like, it might even be as simple as, like, wow, I've always thought you've got to do A, B, and C in life because that's the traditional system. And, hello, it's just becoming very clear to me now. I can't avoid it. It's in my face. That doesn't work for me. It doesn't actually work. So I need to restructure somehow. I need to let go of something. I need to break something down, and I need to release something in order to open the way for me to step into my personal power, for me to step into my creative capacity, which is what Pluto wants to do. Pluto wants to actually break down anything or reveal things to us that are stopping us from actually being in our power or in our creative capacity. And when I say power, I don't mean power. I mean our willful creative drive, our willful creative capacity. Because as humans, we are creators, and that's ultimately it's the settings, it's our messages of what we are disempowered by. You can't be this, or you can't be that, or you're only this, or this is life. It's whatever it is that steps in our way of of our own personal creative capacity that we then project onto those around us and go, well, they're more powerful than me, or that's better than me, or whatever it is. And that's actually us setting up the opposition for us to step into our creative will. And ultimately, that's the challenge, like what's life about? What's on one level, life's about overcoming the self-imposed blockages to keep us from our merging with our innate creative self. And I mean, that's
do you see, while you're talking then, I got the picture of how competitive the world has become in all facets of life by looking inside and becoming our best self and working on our version and rediscovering the creativity that we've all got, whatever form that takes, and being our best version of ourselves will then give permission for others around us to do the same. And then that will just amplify out and permeate out. And it's not about competition then, it's about, well, I can be my best self, I can be true to my heart, and then you see me doing that, then that gives you permission to do the same, and then that flows on, and the whole 6 degrees, it just keeps expanding out, rather than that more restrictive, well, I can't be my best if I'm not beating you, or I'm not I haven't got a bigger house or a better job or whatever, the things that we've the last 30-40 years, that's how society has gone for most people. We seem to be, there's a real deep feeling that's turning around, and there's more focus now on, like you said, revealing that veil that we've all, the mask that most of us wear, all the labels that have been instilled on us, whether it be father, son, brother, mentor, whatever it is, letting all that go, and then just becoming our best version, and then just allowing that to flow the way it is, removing all the like you said, the expectations, the labels that people have instilled on us, whether that be parents, teachers, whatever. And no one's done anything wrong. It's just how that's evolved. And I love the word flipping. It's going to flip. And I also got out of that too, that polarity you're talking about. No fence sitting. So where we used to be able to go, and I'm guilty of this. I can bounce back and forth and be a bit of chameleon. I can do this part. I've held jobs that are very heavily stressed and focused. And then I'm trying to build within my spiritual side as well, and trying to flip flop between them. For me, that feels very much that those days are gone, and as a result, here we are talking on my very first podcast. You do what you're doing, which is so aligned with each other. It's amazing. Yeah. And
Billy, I think you just perfectly described the movement from Capricorn to Aquarius. You just perfectly described it. Like it literally is that. It's this moving away from predetermined structure or encapsulated structure into individualized expression. Like, I mean, it's interesting too. Like Aquarius and Capricorn are both ruled by Saturn, so they both have a structural component to them. They both have a sort of a hierarchical awareness around it, but it's different. In Capricorn, the hierarchical awareness is an externalized hierarchy. It's government. It's this sort of authoritative hierarchy of material form. Whereas in the structural hierarchy of the expression of Aquarius, it's a more internal sovereignty. It's a hierarchy of individual alignment. So we still have responsibility. We still have this enormous responsibility to comply with the laws of the universe, in so much as responsibility and structure and time. We can't just imagine it and it happens. Like there's this need for self-responsibility, but it's more of a sovereign, self-sovereign awareness. It's our connection with our divine or our purpose, or it's a connection with, if you say, there's one way to put it, like say a divine hierarchy or a universal hierarchy, or it's more that laws of nature rather than laws of man, so to speak. Like it's in that awareness. And I'm not saying one of the negative expressions of Aquarius is anarchy or rebellion or things like that, but on the other hand, it's revolution, it's liberation, it's freedom, it's independence. But all those words, they are underpinned by responsibility. We must be responsible for ourselves. Knowing ourselves, that opens us up to be responsible for that. And once you know who you are, you're responsible to be it. And that's otherwise you just kind of, I don't know, taking a back seat. Yeah.
Someone dear to me a few weeks ago expressed it in this way, that you can be your best self, and that doesn't have to be, you have permission to do that, and that's not being selfish. We use the word selfish a lot. So when we're looking at self-improving and focusing on who we are, that's not in a selfish manner, and it's not detrimental to anyone else. It's just being able to dive deep within and become that best person that's already in there. It's just relearning, and then that energy will flow out. And there's one thing that I feel like with over the years, that there's almost like a pool of, let's use money, that's an easy example. There's only a certain pool of money, and we've all got to dive in and get our bit, and there's only a certain amount out there. So if I'm taking, then I'm taking from someone else, and that's not really how it works. Energetically, it's more of abundance. So there is there is no limitation, there is no boundary. So I can be abundant within myself, you can, anyone else can, and there's no limits to that. And I feel like that's where we're heading.
That's right. And I think you're right. And that again, that's that movement away from that Pluto and Capricorn, that real competitiveness, that real, structural awareness of like, I'm higher on the ladder than you are. Like it's really about standing on the ladder and going, I will learn from that rung, but I will put my hand out to that rung. Like it's about recognizing our evolutionary position, but at the same time, not through comparison, but through self-understanding. It's through finding ourselves in our time and in our place, and living to our fullest in that, rather than being sort of categorized and constrained through, echelonic kind of representational awarenesses, where ultimately what that creates in a medical sense is this thing called allostatic stress, where, you perceive a higher position, and the perception of a higher position versus a lower position creates this idea that, you're less than or subservient to this force, and like that creates all sorts of health problems. Like they've studied it in many different contexts, but really it's not a case of echelon or comparison. You're right, it's abundance and it's fulfillment and it's attainment. Like there's enough here for everybody, and it's just when we break down these mental barriers around how that must look or how that must go, that's when we start getting into trouble. But it's early days. But what we're talking about here is what's beginning. This is what's beginning. Essentially, every time. Okay, here we go. Essentially, every time we move out of a Pluto and Capricorn into Pluto and Aquarius, it's a period where we move into a period of renaissance. We move into a period of rediscovery. There's a burgeoning of new awareness or new technology. Aquarius represents technology. It represents invention, all these types of things. So think about Aquarius too. It's unknown. Like Uranus is the ruler of, while Saturn is, but Uranus also rules over Aquarius, and he's sort of the archetype of invention, the archetype of new technology or new awarenesses. And let's face it, we're heading into the world of AI. So if you look at the polarity of things, like on one hand we will transform the world through technology, but on the other hand we've got to be careful that we don't destroy our very foundations through technology. It's that Pluto comes in and looks at right use of power or right use of control and things like that. So again, here we stand on this precipice of moving away from, I guess, the perils of material attainment and structure and bureaucracy into the perils of technological advancement. But like that's just being I guess sort of futuristic, I suppose, but like essentially, we're moving into a renaissance vibration is what we're looking at too, I guess. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, some big shifts coming.
Enormous.
How does with the history you're talking about, the American Revolution? Yep. That's is that I'm curious with astrology. Are you looking back? Is that how astrologists have been able to? I'll be honest. For years and years, growing up and in my 20s, 30s, even, I was a bit skeptical of astrology because I was basing that on a very, very limited viewpoint of you see all your star signs in the newspaper or magazine or whatever it may be, and I just think, well, how can 1/12 of the people all be getting the same message? And obviously, I've learnt since that you have your moon signs and all your planets and their influence are all born under a whole different group of planets and where they are and all the degrees and everything else. From an astrology point of view, are you looking at that? You're looking at the history, like you're speaking about before, and how that we're revisiting that now. Like you're talking about Pluto coming into Aquarius, we can look back at the last time that happened. Look at history globally. That's easier because we weren't alive, and you're basing a lot of what we're going through now on that. Is that?
Yeah, well, that's in just very quickly as an overview, astrology is really just the language of describing the energetics or the archetypes behind symbols, right? And astrology is literally the study of cycles. And so, there's all these different planets, so to speak, but essentially too, they represent an energy or an energetic, and it's a big long-winded discussion, but how that works. But like essentially, what we can see with astrology and the variation of astrology and the timings of things and all that sort of stuff is that if we look at the cycles and look at the energetic expressions of the cycles, we get a feeling around what the energy might look like, or what kind of influences we might be under from external impression. Just like the sun, you go out in the sun and you feel the vibration and the heat and the energy of the sun on a very subtle level. And this is subtle stuff here, really subtle things that we're probably in times of Aquarius will start to become more aware of energetically, of the subtleties of life, that the sensitives might become aware of, but as yet in our sort of Capricornian denseness, these things are sort of pooky spooky or hocus pocus. But like at the end of the day, subtlety does exist, and each planet, I feel, releases or imparts a subtle field which influences us. And so as a collective or as an individual via response to the collective, there's all these sort of different aspects where it can play out. But yeah, like if we look at historical understandings, it's just, first of all, we realize that planets like, say, Saturn and Jupiter, they take Jupiter's 12 years cycle and Saturn's a 28 to 30 year cycle. And, on top of that, you've got Uranus, which has an 84 year cycle, and Neptune's got a 164 year cycle. So, Pluto, 248 years. So there's these cycles that are evolving. And if we look at Pluto, for argument's sake, we can sort of get a feeling of like, okay, cool. Last time Pluto was in Capricorn, and we know the energetics of Pluto is transformation and regeneration and empowerment, and Capricorn is structure and those types of things. So we get a good idea in advance that like, hey, in 2007, there'll be an energy that comes in to renovate, transform, and cast the idea of right use of power around structure, authority, mind, and things like that. And, institutions and all those types of things. So look at the last, 2007 till now, it's kind of been a bit like that, and so moving vibrationally, we're now moving Pluto into Aquarius. So you don't know how it's exactly going to look, but if you look at history and go, okay, last time Pluto did that, and if we go, say, the 2 times before that, last time Pluto went from Capricorn to Aquarius, we had, the American War of Independence, and shortly thereafter we had the French Revolution, both big kind of transitional pre-Renaissance era kind of battles against structure, authority, and tyranny. The time before that, we had the Renaissance, which emerged out of the Martin Luther type Great Schism, Reformation period, where essentially the tyranny of the structured religious framework of the world was opposed, and out of that came a more humanistic realization and things like that. So essentially, same theme again. Time before that, we had the Magna Carta. We had the great uprising in England where people realised that they lived under serfdom and tyranny, and out came the Magna Carta, which was a declaration of our rights as humans against the imposed tyranny of an external force. So there's this repeating theme around Pluto in Capricorn, and it looks different each time, and we can call it whatever we want, but essentially that's the energetic. So, but if we look back at the times that followed those times, we had periods of Renaissance. We had periods of not only polarization, but out of that polarization came a middle path, which led to a Renaissance. It led to an overwhelming reinvention of what it is to be human, a reinvention of what it is to be to be individual on one level, but also a realization of the group. And like, so it's interesting, you know, like we can sort of, genuinely sort of feel, and we probably are all feeling maybe on some level, this team humanity kind of emergence of what it is to be an individual, or what it is to be, in libertas, like it's, but always there's a polarity. There's always a polarity, like in our conceptualization of Renaissance and freedom, we are presented with the polarity of enslavement. We are presented with the polarity of, digital control. We're presented with the polarity of the opposite. And so, here we are entering a time, and just have to watch the media to really see this, but like here we are embroiled in this struggle around individual freedom and humanity and our right to express our independence. But meanwhile, there's discussions being floated around entering some sort of Orwellian high-tech control grid where, collectivization is brought down to the point of a numerical association, and you've got no soul, you've got no spirit, you're just a number, and this is who you are, and you fit perfectly into a higher plan. And I've heard people say that, like it's crazy, but that's the polarity, like
the polarity of it.
I mean, yep. Where do you sit? Which side do you want? I personally, I can't help it, but I'm on Team Humanity. I'm on the side of enlightened spirit. I'm on the side of what it is to be human. And like, just to add in that moment, it's what is human. My understanding from what I've heard, humanus, the word human comes from humanus, which is hue meaning a shade and manus meaning mind. And so as humans, we're a mind of many different shades. We're a mind of many different colors. And like, so really we are this being of light, so to speak. We are a frequency. We are a vibration. It's discernible as physical. We live on a material plane for sure, but in that comes a construct of rules and things like that. So it ultimately, I guess what I'm saying is ultimately we're energetic beings, and we're here to express some and experience something, and so I don't know, I don't think that really marries up with copying a number and being told that.
No, not at all. And I find it fascinating what you're saying with the history of the American Revolution and Magna Carta, etc. They'll probably in the history book show that people fought against the establishment and everything else, but essentially that hasn't come about. It's come about more pertinent is the self-discovery and the people realizing who they are and recognizing that this is not working for us anymore and rising up. And there would have been that polarity in all those situations as we are going through now, and where some people would have been, right, we're going up against the king or the queen or the government or whatever it is, and there's others, like you're saying with the humanity, saying, I'm happy with my boundaries are changing, and I'm going to be more sovereign and live the way I'm meant to be living, not the way I've been told to live. And
exactly, yeah, and that's the thing with polarity. The ultimate challenge is synthesis. So you get this polarity. You don't realize the importance of freedom until you realize the effects of imprisonment. And it's like those. You see these photos of riots. And there's the riot police coming up against the crowds, and it's just this same energy meeting in the middle. And really, the synthesis though is like, what are the two poles here? What are the two polarities? Well, the middle path is individuation. The middle path in this instance is the right to sovereign autonomy, but at the same time, self-responsibility and self-empowerment. Freedom comes through responsibility. Like if you use keywords, Pluto in Capricorn, which we've been through, Pluto is on one hand, control and tyranny, and Capricorn is government and authority, so we've got this sort of one expression of this energy, but on another expression of that energy, it's transformation and empowerment of mind through allowing yourself to release any attachments that prohibit us from stepping into our own self-responsibility. So really, this is about actually developing the framework within us all to actually recognize the full extent of that Capricorn Cancer polarity, recognize your place, recognize what nourishes you, build a sort of a sustainable foundation around that, and then step into the Renaissance, which is then to find and express that and build upon that. So really, this polarity we've been through for the last 17 years is to give us a good solid mindfulness, I feel, of the importance of structure and nurture, and like, you know, on whatever level that takes place. But if you look at the events that lead to that and the human call to action in that, it's purely evolutionary, and that's not to demean it or diminish it. It's what we're here for. We're here to engage in a play, if you like, or engage in a concert of evolution, and that's what we're here for. And you know, ultimately, getting back to where I started, ultimately it's about synthesis. We're here to get the polarities, whatever they are, and find the right middle path and synthesize them. And how we do that, that's through, I guess, through love, or through consciousness. Yeah.
Yep. And perfect. How do you I wanted to, we touched on in the early stages of the lunar new moon, and like we've been talking with Western astrology, I suppose it is, with the Chinese New Year, which is literally today, and the lunar new, as we speak.
Right now.
Yeah, right now. It's perfect. Yeah. So how do you see that in correlation with what we've been talking about?
Yeah, well, it's really lovely. Like the new moon today, or right now, it's you know, basically the lunar new year is recognised as the second new moon since solstice. So like today is the second new moon since solstice, and that kicks off in the northern hemisphere, kicks off spring. In the southern hemisphere, for us, it announces the beginning of autumn, so to speak. But if we look at this new moon, it sort of coincides with Pluto entering Aquarius. This new moon is in Aquarius. It's interesting, the new moon falls right at the 20th degree, and the 20th degree is the Scorpio degree, which is ruled by Pluto, but it also speaks of a new moon that brings about transformation, brings about this initiation of the change, of the growth, of the empowerment, that type of thing. It's a very auspicious new moon, and we're entering a very auspicious new year too. You know, if you look at the lunar, you know, say with Eastern tradition and things like that, where it's a wood, you know, a yang wood dragon year. So like there's this enormous, you know, virility this year. There's this enormous expansion of self-awareness, of I guess springtime of the soul. You know, like it's an incredibly ambitious year. It's a courageous year. It's a year for, you know, it's charismatic. It's got this lovely underpinning, just drive for growth. But at the same time, it's stable. It's kind of anchored in this same sort of wood energy, which has roots. It has foundation. It's, you know, it's resilient. It's kind of calls for this sort of maturity. It calls for this sense of I guess, wisdom and caution. You know, so like again, it's just about anchoring yourself and aligning with yourself and going for it. You know, like this year is a really good year for that. But the thing is too, you know, wood. Think about wood too. Like wood is the blood. It rules the blood. It's our vitality. It's our essence. You know, so whatever it is that we encapsulate through our mind and our food and our, you know, that represents in our blood. So like that's why we're worth our blood's worth our weight in gold, or whatever it is. But like our blood is our vigor, our vitality. It's a statement of our sort of how all that comes together. So, you know, if our blood doesn't flow, if our blood becomes stagnant, or if we restrain our blood, it leads to, you know, stagnation, and it leads to irritability, and it leads to problems. So essentially, you know, we've got to move this year. You've got to sort of keep active, keep that blood flowing, keep that vitality, you know, like keep it happening. If blood gets resisted or things like that, it feels like anger, it feels like irritability, it feels like stiffness, it feels like inflammation. Like it comes across in those ways. So it's a very, very auspicious commencement to Pluto in Aquarius. Like it's such a, you know, this year's got some vivace in it, you know, like it's happening, you know. So that, and if you think of wood too, like healthy wood is flexible but robust, you know. So it's about being able to flow with the changes and be adaptable, but at the same time build that inner resilience. And I did, in advance, I had a look at the symbolism around this particular new moon. Like when a new moon falls, you know, it's an Aquarian moon, so it's a fixed sign. So it sort of falls in this fixed cross of understanding, if you like. But on one hand, it's about resilience. It's about developing courage. On the other side of disillusionment. So, you know, we might find ourselves quite disillusioned at this point, but yet with this moon comes the vigor and the courage to look beyond the disillusionment, you know, like to sort of attach to this inner strength and at the same time, through compassion, you know, approach adversity in that way, so like, it's no accident. I don't think there'd be many people out there who aren't incredibly disillusioned right now. Like I just can't see that being the case, apart from, I don't know, certain people, I don't know, but like there'd be a lot of it anyway, put it that way, especially with Neptune in Pisces for the last 14 years. Like it's about nothing being solid, nothing being clear, nothing being obvious, real fogginess, real lack of clarity. What's the truth? What's real? What's going on? So, this disillusionment there's a signal here in this new moon to just develop resilience in the face of disillusionment, embrace your courage, and get out amongst it. And on the other hand too, if you look at the square or the challenges to that, there's also the caution there not to become overwhelmed by it and run around, like the symbol that kind of represents the opposite 20 Leos, intoxicated chickens. So like, not to let it overwhelm you and become too kind of responsive or reactive to this new potential, but at the same time just sort of, temper your first reactions to the energy. It's finding the middle ground, you walk the middle path, weigh up the polarities. Don't be drawn into a polarity, weigh up the polarities and be part of the leadership to walk that middle path. And that's the real challenge that arises from it, but it's very optimistic. And on the other squares, it's learning to, I guess, obey our inner consciousness, our inner awareness in the face of external orders, so to speak. So like, we're being asked here also too to listen to ourselves in the face of what we've been told we should do. So there's a little bit of bombastic disobedience in it, in the sense that we really, with this courage to break through this disillusionment, we've got to kind of listen a little bit to what we're talking about and follow our own consciousness in the face of orders or instructions that might not really resonate with us, and that can be put in any context. And on the other hand, it's learning to discern meaning and what is of value to us within a stable sort of cultural orientation. So, build your networks, build your friends, build your groups, build your connections, build your bridges, but build them on your own values. Learn to discern what's important. Learn to discern what's of value. Learn to discern, what digest, listen to, or come up with, and really hold like wood, hold structurally firm in your values or what's important. And so I guess that's, just long-windedly, but that's what the new moon kind of sparks a bit. And what great
Beautiful.
timing.
Yeah, that disillusion you're talking about that's been around for the last little while. For me, it feels like it's pivotal that people are starting to question and work out. Hang on, this is what's going on here. This is not how I've lived my life. What are the truths? And asking those questions within and externally, because without being able to do that, then you can't move and change and shift to the new to our new existence.
Absolutely. You've ultimately got to listen. You got to listen to yourself. Yeah, and this is why I guess it comes back to what we were talking about right at the beginning. Like, it's knowing yourself. It's knowing who you are, knowing what your nature is, like understanding your true nature, because we're all very, very different. And this is the beauty of the Aquarian energy. It's like, it's our differences that make us who we are. It's that little bit of individuality that is what we are. And that's the whole vibration. Like, if you look at the polarity of Aquarius, it's Leo. It's our shining our heart's light. It's self-expression. It's Aquarius urges us to work out who we are. And usually that's by feeling alienated or feeling different or feeling kind of weird or left out. But it's in that sense of alienation that we discover our true self. And so it's okay to be alienated. It's okay to say no to the mass, because in that process sometimes we discover what it is that makes us tick. And then from that discovery, the Leo, you get out on stage and you tell people about it. You offer it, you express it, and then that makes the connection. That makes you part of the group. That makes you valuable to us all. If your little difference isn't brought onto the stage, the play's not complete. Like we need your character, we need your input, and the only way we can find out what it is if you allow yourself to discover it, and you allow yourself to back it, and you bring it out. And that's like I love what you're about, Billy, because this is that all of you, like what is all of you? And I mean, the timing is just insane. I love universal cosmic timing, because like what a great moment, not just day, but the moon is new right now in the sky, and it's telling us to find our unique self. It's asking us to be all about us, and like that's what's so important. But it's challenging, but it's beautiful, and I think that's what we're here for.
Yeah, definitely, and you're right that word challenging, because it goes against the grain of what we've done for all our lives or most of our lives, and relearning and using that discernment and understanding that it's actually not just okay to be different, but to be yourself, whatever that means, and not just walk the path of the crowd, because the crowd actually needs, what you said before, every person's essence and energies to make it all happen, and for us all to grow.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you're right. Really. I love what you're saying. Like, it's not just a thing we've got to do; it's imperative. It's absolutely imperative. And and the thing we're going to come to realize, I feel, if you think of Aquarian energy, and it's funny, the internet, so to speak, is an Aquarian archetype. Like interconnectedness of all things. So like the human mind is by virtue of itself, like what we're actually, if you kind of, I don't know, we're able to have an etheric view of things. The human mind is an internet. We're all interconnected. We're all, we're all hooked up to one another. We're all kind of somehow on some level that we're all enmeshed in the same water. Like, so if you click a rock together in a pond, you feel it through the water, like it's everywhere. We're all interconnected. So the more we individuate in our own server, if we use the internet example, the more we form our own server, the greater the power of that human interconnectedness. And like, I mean, it's something to realize. It's almost it's a requirement that we individuate. It's a requirement that we become ourselves, because the more we become ourselves, the greater the human potential, the greater the human power, because we're plugging in and we're increasing our hard drive or our RAM capacity. I don't know what it is, but we're aligning our energetic and increasing that, and that's important.
And that's pivotal for, they say thrive instead of survive. So we've been surviving, like we've talked about, and now by being individuals and being our best versions of ourselves, we can allow ourselves and everyone else around us. While you're speaking then, I was thinking of the analogy or parable to like an ecosystem, like a rainforest, for example. You've got your bigger trees, you've got your foliage, you've got your microorganisms, you've got all your fauna and flora all the way through there. Every single species is their individual doing their own thing with their own agenda and their own, but like trees communicate, we know that it's been scientifically proven. They're all the layers of from the ground, below the ground, all the way to the top of the trees, the canopy, and everything that with the sun allowed in and the water, it's all sustainable and thriving. It doesn't need anything else, because every little species and everything is doing their thing not just for their own betterment, but for the betterment of the whole system.
Absolutely, Billy. Like, that's the thing. It's one big giant creative biosphere. Like, life is that, and we have our part in it. And within our own, even our own human kingdom is a biosphere within itself. And I mean, it's ginormous. So yeah, it's absolutely like that. Like, I think, just a slight digression, but like, I mean, if you think of mind, and again, what Pluto and Capricorn is ultimately doing for us, on another level, is Capricorn rules mind, and mind isn't just thinking. Mind is the structure of our self. Like it's the motherboard. It's not just the currents running through it. And so, like, mind, the more mind you stack together or interface together, the greater the magnetism for manifestation. Like, so, we've got this, the human imagination, like the word imagination is like taken from, just how I think anyway, it's like individually magnetize, nation comes from natal, I magnetically give birth, or I magnetically create. And so, like, the more we individuate, the more we come into our true structure of mind and our true essence. And then for the more that we network that or make positive connections of like mind, the more we increase that magnetism and increase the likelihood of its actual manifestation. So, like, the more, like, if you can see it at work, like, collectively, like, I mean, as a collective unconscious, something goes on the radio, a million people hear it, and it's real. It happens. There it is, bang. But when it comes to divine creative acts, like, it's not as apparent, because you need enormous collections of mind to apply the magnetism that's required in order to manifest the form that takes place on the material level. So, like, the more we individuate and the more we make these beautiful energetic connections along our individual lines as groups and human collectives, the more we can manifest brilliant ideas, the more we can manifest brilliant forms. And that's just a promise for this age that we're entering. It's lovely.
I love it. All right. Well, Martin, mate, I've been fascinated with everything that you've offered today and all the information. So informative, and I hope people listening get a lot out of it, get what I've got out of it as well. I'm looking forward to many more conversations and future podcasts. So I'd invite you, if you're happy, to come along regularly. And I think not just with astrology, but there's so many other components that we can talk about, and we've had conversations off air, and an hour and a half later it just flows. So that's definitely what makes my heart sing is aligning myself with people like yourself who think similarly. We're from different backgrounds and have we don't even live in the same area, but that's not the point. It's our heart that's connected, and we'll invite everyone else to find themselves and be their best version. So I'm just going to ask you three questions, if that's okay, and we'll close up for today. We've talked for a fair while, but there's plenty more to come for sure. So what inspires you? You've sort of dabbed in this anyway, but what inspires you to do what you do? Because I love what you do. I love what you and your wife are doing.
Thanks, Billy. Wow, that's I think what inspires me is a real love for it. And when I say that, I just really love what I'm doing. And when I say I love it, it's not that I love the task or the individual service of it. It allows me to stay in my love of things. It allows me to stay in love, and that, I guess that's why I do it. Like when I'm sharing a growth with someone, or when I'm sharing a journey with someone, or when I'm working with someone on a certain level, I find myself brought into a state of love. I love what I do. And I think it's in love that comes synthesis and comes the ability to grow. And I guess I love growing, and I love healing, and I love living. And so that's why I do it.
Beautiful, and that shines through from the very moment I met you a few years ago. For those who don't know, obviously Martin does astrology readings, and that's how we come about. And not just your information was so valuable to me and amazingly accurate. It really opened my eyes up. But your heart come through, and it was just something that resonated with me energetically. And so everything you just said, you're living it, and that's inspiring for not just myself but for others as well to do the same. So thank you very much for all you do. So it probably leads to the next question. In your opinion, what are the keys to happiness, peace, and being all of you?
Okay,
that's a long-winded question, but
yeah. No. I've got a short answer for you, and this is an inspiration that came to me. I can't place where, but it's always in my mind, and when I heard it resonated with me so strongly that it just incorporated. And to me, there's four things to have all those things that you described there. Basically, you need something to do. So you got to have something to do. You got to have a need, a service to offer. You've got to have something to do. Next thing is you've got to have something to look forward to. You've got to have an aspiration. You've got to have a dream. You've got to have a place to go. That's super important. You've got to have something to believe in. And so you need a strong core belief process. You need a strong core recognition of faith. You need that. It's essential. And then the fourth one is you've got to have something or someone to love. Right. There's your four pillars, I think, of a good life.
Oh, that's perfect answer. I love it. And your organisation, Arcanum Vita, where can we find you? And I'll put the links on the site as well.
Cool, thanks, Billy. You can get to us through our website, www.arcanumvita.com.au, which I think we can put in the box below. So jump on the website, and also you can actually check us out on Facebook and Instagram. We're on the socials, so that's Arcanum Vita. You'll know us by the symbol of Saturn, which it's not a diabolical symbol. Just very quickly, that's the symbol of Saturn is literally the energetic description of how we manifest things in life. It's the responsibility and action leads to form. So don't worry, that's our symbol. But and also, so those, basically through those two mechanisms, drop us a message or check us out online. We've got not only have we got services, like we've got just a bit of a plug, but like we've got
go for it. Yep.
Property and astrology and those types of services. But also we've got a range of we make our own herbal medicines. Like I artisan produce our own herbs. We do our own maceration, so there's a lot of love and intention goes into those. So we offer herbal medicines as well, but also we've got a range of personal care products, like magnesium creams and moisturizers and serums and lovely things. I'm a cosmetic chemist as well, which is kind of a little sideline. So we've developed a range of all natural and vegan conscious personal care products too, but which are designed for those who are not only very discerning and very sensitive, but also very aware of ethical considerations and things like that as well. So we do that too. So check out the website, check out our Facebook, and we do regular astrology kind of posts, as you know, Billy. Every Sunday we put up a post and try and sort of break down the energy of the week ahead and all that sort of thing. So please like and check out our Facebook page, check out our Insta, and keep us there.
I encourage everyone to do the same. And no, you're very welcome. I love your newsletters and everything that you bring out. It's very informative. And I think I was saying to you before we come on air that I find I have to read them 3 or 4 times, not because I don't understand, but there's such a multiple layers in everything that you write, and they're beautifully constructed. And I welcome everyone to just jump onto your site and look at all the beautiful products that you've got. And the service that you provide are just amazing, and I love what you're doing. So
thanks, Billy. Awesome. Love your work.
Yeah,
well, good luck with what you do too. I love your endeavours and all the best with them. And you're hitting the nerve, Billy. You're right on the pulse. Like this is what we're going into. This is where we're heading. And this is what you're doing is so vital. So vital. Good luck with it.
Thank you very much, and I love that just through Divine we've come together on today. Like you said, perfect. Yep. Good incredible.
Yep. Good on
Very
you,
good. All right, I'll finish this off. I'll talk to you off air, and we'll definitely catch up soon. Thanks so much again, Martin, for everything that you do and coming on today and offering everything that we've spoke about. I hope everyone's enjoyed it. And
anyone listening to, thanks so much for listening to thanks so much for listening to us today, and thanks so much for giving us your time to hear what we're saying as well. I really appreciate it. I'm sure you do, Billy.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Okay,
all right.
cool.
Okay, thanks, mate. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, mate. Cheers, mate. Bye.